In this video, we will review price controls for the supply and demand model. First off, what is supply? Supply is the total amount of a product, good, or service available for purchase at any specified price. Think of a shoe factory. There is a specific amount that is made based off of the demand required. Don't worry, we'll go over demand shortly. In economics, we can review the supply model with the graph. This graph shows us how much we are able to supply at a certain price. For instance, at $30, we are supplying 3 pairs of shoes, and with 2 pairs of shoes at $20, and so on. Now, the supply curve doesn't always stay this way. There are certain things like changes in technology, taxes and subsidies, costs of inputs, and number of sellers with producer expectations that may cause the curve to shift to the right or the left. For example, if there is a new machine created that helps speed up the process of making shoes, then the supply curve will shift to the right to show that we are able to make more shoes more efficiently. A negative example would be if factory workers went on strike. This would delay production and cause the supply curve to shift to the left because not as many shoes are being made. Next takes us to demand. Demand is the amount of desire an individual has to purchase a specific product or service. Say you are in a store and see a pair of shoes that you absolutely have to buy. You notice that these shoes are very expensive. This most likely means that these shoes are higher in demand because of the price it costs to attain them. The item can only be done by those who are willing and able to pay at that price. We can review demand with a demand curve, just like we did with supply. Again, we see the quantity demanded at a certain price. In this model, if we are able to spend $30, then we are able to buy 2 pairs of shoes at this cost. Just like supply, the demand curve can shift as well. Circumstances like income, buyers' expectations, taste and preferences, number of buyers, and the price related to the good. If a family suddenly comes into more money than they are used to in this will shift the demand curve to the right because they can now purchase more with their increased income. Now say that taste and preferences change and it is no longer in style to wear high heels. This will cause the demand curve for high heels to shift to the left because there aren't as many buyers. Now when we combine the two curves, we get this. Notice that there is a point where both the curves intersect each other. This is what we call an equilibrium price and quantity demanded. This is where our market will be efficient because there is enough supply to go around at this specific price point. Now what if the shoe company decides to sell the shoes at $30, which is higher than the equilibrium price? Because the price is increasing, demand is decreasing, so there aren't as many buyers. This will create a surplus because the company is making 1 extra pair of shoes that won't be purchased. Now, if the company decides to lower the price past equilibrium, that will increase demand for the shoes. Now the company doesn't have enough shoes for all of the demand that is being requested. This is what we call a shortage. Now that we understand what supply and demand is and what causes them to shift and what will cause it to create a surplus or a shortage, let's turn the table over to price controls. A price control is a government-imposed control on what a company can charge for a product or service. It can be in the form of a price ceiling or a price floor. A price ceiling is the maximum amount that a company can charge in an exchange for a product or service. Currently, gas prices in Utah are averaging at $2.85 a gallon. Plus, that's only with the top 10 cheapest gas prices according to GasBuddy. As we all know, gas prices change daily and it affects how much we may want to buy and use. When gas prices are higher, typically we don't buy as much when we need it, or we drive less to conserve what we currently have. When gas prices are lower, we most likely will buy more, use it to travel more, and maybe even stock up on it in anticipation of prices increasing again. If there is a cap on how much a gas station can charge for gas, then that means that the gas station cannot charge what it is actually worth if it is more than the price ceiling. When price ceilings are lower than the equilibrium price, then it can create a shortage. It does this because quantity demanded is higher than the quantity supplied. which in turn means that there is not enough gas to go around for how much it is in demand. For instance, after the effects of Hurricane Sandy in 2012, there was a gasoline shortage because of anti-gouging laws and other restrictions put in place by the government. These laws served as a price ceiling, and that made it so gas stations couldn't raise the price of gasoline to fit with its increased demand due to the effects of the hurricane. So, since price was lower and demand was higher, gas stations couldn't raise the price of gasoline to help it last longer, so instead it created a shortage. Price floors or quantity restrictions are minimum prices that the government sets for firms to charge for goods and services. Currently, the Chinese government set a price floor on rice in order to convince farmers to keep farming rice. The government is afraid that farmers start growing other goods instead of rice. Thus, the market could break because consumers would not have rice because farmers are not growing it anymore. Since rice is something that China cannot live without, a higher price does not make a big difference in quantity demanded, except if you are living in poverty. Since the minimum price that rice can be sold at is above the equilibrium price, the quantity demanded will fall and the market will have a surplus as a consequence. The government buys off the surplus and gives it away to people or zones with scarce resources to balance the market. This concludes our tutorial on price controls with the supply and demand model.